So what we've discussed with President Putin is a very important point. It's to hit only terrorists, only Daesh and the jihadi groups, and not to hit the forces and groups fighting terrorists. So indeed we've exchanged information on that subject. What can and what should not be hit. So it's a double effort, a double coordination to avoid these incidents between all the countries fighting in Syria against terrorism. And secondly, so that we can have targets that each person and each country can understand.
The final question from Russian media, Interfax, please. You mentioned the need to form a broad coalition. Is this the kind of coalition that you talked about at the UN conference, Mr. Putin, or will rivalry between different coalitions continue? If rivalry will continue, how effective do you think such coalitions could be, considering the incident with the Russian plane? Or it will be a different kind of coalition? Will this coalition operate in third countries as well, not just in Syria? And I would like to go back to the situation with the Russian plane. Just a few hours ago, the Turkish president gave an interview in which he said that if only Turkey knew that this was a Russian plane, they would have acted differently. And he also said that oil cargo transported by ISIS is intercepted by Turkey and is destroyed. And if Russia can prove otherwise, the Turkish president is ready to resign. How would you comment on this statement? Well, as regards coalitions, we discussed this issue with Mr. President today. We respect the coalition led by the US, and we are willing to cooperate with it. We believe it would be better to have one common coalition and coordinate our joint efforts. Would be easier with having just one coalition, but if our partners are not ready for that, and this is what I said in the UN, that's fine. We are prepared to work in a different format, one that would be acceptable to our partners. We would be willing to cooperate with the US-led coalition. But of course, incidents like when our plane was downed and our servicemen were killed, a pilot and a Marine who was part of the rescue team, this is totally unacceptable. And we believe that this will never happen again. Otherwise, we are not interested in having this kind of cooperation with any coalition or any country, any party. And this is exactly what we talked with the French president about, and we've agreed on how we will cooperate bilaterally and with the US-led coalition as a whole. We will define areas that are eligible for airstrikes, areas where we shouldn't have any airstrikes, sharing intelligence and coordinating our actions on the battlefield as well. Now you also asked about oil, and that this oil is supposedly destroyed on Turkish territory. When we had the G20 meeting in Antalya, Turkey, I showed some pictures made from an altitude of 5,000 meters by our pilots. You can see trucks transporting oil, and they go one after another, and it goes all the way to the horizon. This looks like a living oil pipeline. We're talking about massive amounts of oil transported from seized Syrian territories, seized by terrorists. It is from this territory that oil goes, and we see from above where those trucks are going. They go to Turkey day and night. I can't believe that the Turkish leadership is not aware of that. It's hard to believe that, but theoretically this may be possible. But this doesn't mean that the Turkish authorities should not stop such illegal business. And there is a special resolution by the UN Security Council that bans buying oil from terrorists, because those barrels, it's not just oil in those barrels, it's blood of our people, because terrorists buy weapons, buy ammunition with this money, and then they stage terrorist attacks with our plane over the Sinai Peninsula, in Paris, and in other countries and places all over the world. If the Turkish authorities refine oil or destroy this oil, we don't see any smoke from them burning this oil, because we're talking about massive amounts of oil, and they would have to build a special plant to destroy this oil. So if the Turkish authorities are not aware of what is actually happening there, I'm willing to believe that they really are not aware of that. It may be corruption or something else, but then they should sort this out. But we see trucks going to Turkey full of oil all the time, and then they go back empty, and then once again they are loaded with oil and go back to Turkey and come back again. We see this day and night all the time. Now, you also mentioned if the Turkish president should resign or not. It's not up to us, it's up to the people of Turkey. We have never interfered into such matters, and we are not going to. But it's a shame that the unprecedented level of our relations with Turkey that we've achieved in the last decade, in recent years, we had a very high level of relations. Turkey was our friend, almost an ally. And it's a shame that this was destroyed in such a foolish manner.
If President Putin doesn't mind, I'd like to respond to the question as well, with a French point of view. There is an existing coalition already, for several months already. France has been participating in it, and its areas of action are Iraq. With the Iraqi government, it's very important to be able to give it the support necessary to fight Daesh and terrorism, which unfortunately fills this country with blood, Iraq. This coalition has been geographically expanded into Syria. France is intervening in Syria in partnership with this coalition. Since September, I've decided to authorize strikes as a legitimate act of self-defense, knowing that the terrorists who hit Paris and the town of Saint-Denis were trained and unfortunately prepared to commit their act from Raqqa in Syria. We'd now like to have a necessary coordination. It's indispensable not only to avoid incidents, but also to be efficient to hit Daesh terrorism. This coalition needs to be a cooperation, exchange of information, choosing targets that will allow us to react. And united by this UN Security Council resolution, has called for this engagement, so I know European countries have also taken their responsibilities seriously. If we want to be efficient, it's the second point that I want to make. We need to hit Daesh there where there are training centers, organization of this terrorist army, but you also have to hit the sources of supply, notably oil. If there's one point which we need to coordinate, it's indeed hitting there where these trucks, this huge number of trucks, are coming to supply themselves before going to sell them somewhere, giving resources to Daesh. So I can give you this information now. We are going to continue to hit these vehicles and these places where the oil is explored, oil fields, which serve as a source of finance for Daesh, for Islamic State. And I'd also like to confirm that we will support groups that locally can help us, and France, along with the countries of the coalition, are going to support these groups so that they can act against Daesh. It's the same objective, acting against Daesh, destroying this terrorist organization.
As regards our planes that supposedly Turkish fighter jets did not recognize, it's impossible. They are clearly identified. Those were Russian planes, and you cannot mistake them for any other planes. This is number one. And number two, we've passed this information to the US, where our planes will be operating, when and at what altitudes. Since Turkey is a member of this coalition, they should have been aware of Russian planes operating in the area. What other planes? What did they think this was a US plane? No, of course not. This is just a lame excuse. And it's a shame that instead of getting into the situation, sorting it out, and making sure this would never happen again, all we hear is such a lame excuse, and their claims that they have nothing to apologize for. Well, that's their choice. That's not our choice. Thank you.